Okay. All right. Welcome. All right. We are live. We are live, guys. Well, hey, um, thanks for joining. If you're joining us now at the beginning, or if you're going to be jumping in later, but we are live. This is the DripJobs live partnership spotlight call, and today we have the pleasure of having Matt, one of the founders of the Builders Agency, with us today. So, Matt, thanks for joining me, man. How the heck are you? How you doing?
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. We're exciting. Yeah, 2026. It's an exciting time, and not just in the digital space, but in the painting space as well. So, CRMs are super important. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's exciting.
Yeah. 100%. It's 2026, right? Like, how crazy is that? Like, we are in 2026. I mean,
Yeah,
that is nuts. So, and yeah, I'm excited about 2026. There's a lot of good stuff on the horizon. For us, for Drip Jobs, and for me personally, and for Drip Jobs as a whole, there's a lot of good things coming down the pipe there that hopefully a lot of people are excited about. But you also have a lot of good stuff coming too that you guys are working on. So you can divulge on that later if you want to, or as a little teaser there. But before we get started, Matt, just give us an introduction, right? Like,
yeah,
for the people who know you, for the people who don't know you. I've known you for a few years now. It seems like we started talking and having conversations and stuff, several years ago. So give us a little introduction, and we'll start there.
yeah, absolutely. So my name is Matt, and I own a small digital marketing agency. We're located out here in North Carolina. But the fun part is because it's a digital marketing agency, we service people from New York to Los Angeles, Florida, Texas, all over. And so we primarily help with either building websites, renovating websites. We do a lot of digital marketing work. So whether that's helping you with your social media or getting your SEO tightened up, doing some Google ads or social ads, kind of ramping up that digital piece of your business.
Mhm.
And so those are some of the key points of what we do. We are an all digital agency. So we've got 12 people working for us. We've got people in Michigan and other parts of North Carolina. And so we're really excited about that. It kind of makes it easier for our partners, to meet us or to meet them where they're at. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
Well, but you guys also, this might be a little bit more for the commercial side of it as well too, for your commercial clients. But you guys also do like videography, video production,
We
uh,
do. Yeah.
drones, right? You'll do drone footage, everything, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We're I would say almost the full package, right? There's a lot of services. Not everybody utilizes all of them, but they kind of pick and choose. But yeah, video and drone footage is something we do, which is, huge in roofing, huge in painting, huge in just, most, outdoor kind of construction businesses.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So give us a little bit of like how you got to that point, right? Because
Yeah.
most people that start an agency in some form or fashion, or a service-based business specifically in the trades, right, is because they came from the trades maybe, or they have experience. You know, how'd you get to where you're at now as the founder of the agency? Like, what'd you go through? Just give us some of that story. I'm sure it's very, interesting, and people want to hear.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think anybody in the marketing industry, answering the question of how did you get into marketing is always a really
Yeah.
fun story to tell. For me, I had worked in marketing for a little bit, and then I started working for a fencing company out in Los Angeles,
Okay.
and they hired me to do some of their marketing. But with a lot of small businesses, you end up kind of doing everything, right? Like it's not just marketing that you do. And so I've done everything from building a fence to, sending out estimates to organizing the project. So I think the beauty in that, it allowed me to kind of understand, especially from a fencing business, the
Mhm.
process, right? Going out, meeting the client, putting them in our system. Where are they in our system? Emailing them manually. This was back in, 2014, right? So there wasn't a lot of like automation or anything like that. And so, you know, there's a little bit of grit that you kind of earn when you do things manually and you kind of understand the process. And so I did that for 5 years. And so over those 5 years, I really understood, you know, what the process is for a service-based business. And I learned that, yes, while, you know, plumbing is different than roofing and roofing is different than painting, there is a certain pattern that you see within these businesses that, you know, you can kind of carry over one lesson to another niche. And so I primarily did marketing for this fence company.
Okay.
A lot of SEO, a lot of website design, website user experience stuff, a lot of paid advertising, things like that. And so what I realized is that, you know, we were doing a great job with them, and I could do this not just working for them, but working for a few different companies. And so another company reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you help us with this? Because we're struggling here." And at first I said, "No, I already have a job, you know, it's okay." But then over the next few months, I started thinking about it more, and it's like, well, actually I might have something here. You know, it's those little moments where you're like, well, actually this could work, you know?
Yeah.
And so the Builders Agency was born. I had worked at a few digital marketing agencies after this. And so I met a business partner of mine. And we started thinking there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a different way. Because, you know, there are certain things in your industry that you're just told to do, right? Because you work at an agency or you work for somebody else. And so we got together, and he was more of the developer part of it. I was more the marketing part of it. And we came together and formed this business. And, you know, we started taking in, you know, one client at a time. And, you know, it wasn't anything that I was like, I quit my job and I went into this full time. You know, it was something that was like a slow burn, right? You know, you pick up one and you pick up another one. And, you know, before I knew it, you know, we had enough that I could quit my full-time job. And so in 2018 is really when we were born. We said, let's do this. And so we had about 12 clients to start. And that's a pretty, you know, it got to the point that we were, you know, busting at the seam. Like I had to do my full-time job and work at night and this. And so it got to be a point where I decided, you know, okay, let's do this. And so with that, we primarily focus on businesses that are construction related, service-based related. And so we have kind of an inside understanding of where they're at, right? We understand their struggles. We understand not only how to kind of fix those struggles and solve some of those problems, but we also, you know, we can kind of see them coming beforehand, right? Because we work with so many different businesses that are in that kind of field. So it helps us when they say, hey, we're at this point in our business. And so then we can offer them specific solutions to some of those problems. And so I think that's kind of the fun part about this is you can see a business in kind of its infancy, and then, you know, as it matures and it grows, you know, then they're ready for the next step. And so that's kind of how I got started. That's how the Builders Agency was born. It wasn't this, you know, we weren't reinventing the wheel here or anything, but we were definitely onto something. And I think, you know, now that we're a little bit more mature and we have quite a few clients and whatnot, but we're excited to kind of help people grow in whatever stage they're in, right? Whether they're a $10 million company or, you know, hey, we don't even have a website, but we've got like a Facebook page. And so we're not really sure what to do next. So that's kind of how we got started.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, I think a really relatable moment, honestly, is, you know, you were kind of talking about it and you mentioned earlier is when, you're working your job, and then, you're working nights on this kind of, side project, side hustle, right?
Yeah.
There's so much hype about side hustles and things like that in today's world. But, you lived it, right? You did that, right? So that's a really relatable thing, I've personally done it, you've done it. Yours turned into the builder's agency, what it is now. It's a super successful agency that has a full suite of, offerings. But, you know, when you were kind of in that moment, right, of like doing it at night, working during the day, family time, everything, right, that takes a strain on the relationship. Like, when was that moment that you were like, I'm making the jump, right? Like, I'm taking the jump, I'm taking the leap of faith, I'm going for it. When did that moment happen for you?
Yeah. It's funny. It was more of my wife. I'll say that.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
more my wife saying like, you need to do this, you like, and she was right. Women are usually the ones that have a good understanding of this. And they're like, you need to do this first. So yeah, I think my wife was like, I think you need to like do this full time,
Yeah.
you're just happier.
Yeah.
It just seems to be the thing that's like, taking up your time. And so let's just do the logical thing,
Yeah.
because I think when you're in it and you're doing side hustle and you're doing 9 to 5 and you're just,
Yeah.
constantly thinking about it, you're so zoomed in, right? You're so zoomed in. And then it takes your partner who sees the much more zoomed out to say like, hey,
Yep.
you should just plug this piece over here and do that. So
Yeah.
that's really key. I think that's, and anybody who's married or has a significant other partner, or, like they compliment you and they kind of tell you when you're,
Yeah.
what you need to do. So yeah, for me, it was my wife, and she definitely said, hey, you just need to do this full time.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. She's watching you and you're just down in the weeds grinding.
Yeah, I'm in the trenches. Yeah, exactly.
She just says, like, why don't you just pluck yourself out of there and just pop yourself over here in this pasture of green grass,
Exactly.
kind of thing.
Exactly.
Awesome. Very cool. Dude, how good did that feel though, right? Like when you kind of made that switch, sort of the relief and the knowing that you could kind of go all in on one thing. Like, what was that moment like?
Yeah. And it's funny that you asked that, because at first it didn't, like the first month or two, it did not feel right. Like it just felt like there was a little too much free time. There was a little too much, there was something that I was missing or something. But over time, it was like, okay, this feels right. There's a good balance.
Yeah.
I can focus on what I need to focus on.
Yeah.
And so I think that probably it took me like a quarter to really get used to it, like a full 3 months to like, oh, okay, this is the new normal, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. It was great. I think it helps me focus in on the clients too. Like it really helps me, when a client comes to me and says, hey, we're having this issue, I'm really able to like think about it and have my team think about it and digest it. And, of course, if that's not like a problem that's, there's not an automatic answer to, but, and I think that really helps us. It also gave me the time to think about what's next, right? Think about not just the immediate stuff in front of us, but like, what does the next 6 months look like? What does the next year look like? 5 years look like?
Yep.
And it gave us some time to kind of plan things out. And so that also definitely helps.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So if you had to give anybody, advice when they're in that moment, when they're in the weeds, they're thinking about it, right? Because, people thinking about like, man, maybe I could, should I make the switch? Should I not? And they look at numbers and think about, all the stuff. It's a scary moment, right?
Yeah.
100% it's a scary moment. What's like one piece of logical advice you would give to somebody in that moment as to whether or not they should make the move?
Yeah. I think if you're thinking about it, then you're in the sphere of you should probably do it. I think, and I think one thing that I didn't really think about when I was in the trenches is, I always think, well, I can't afford, right? I wouldn't be able to do X, Y, and Z. And I think the truth is that you have the time to put back into your business, right?
Yeah.
So all those projects that you're like, well, I just don't have the time for that right now. Now you have the time for it.
Yeah.
And so you really can grow your business. I think another thing is like trusting yourself, right? Like
Yeah.
if you've made it this far already,
Yeah.
you can take the next hard steps too, because this isn't the first speed bump or roadblock that you've come up to. And so for a lot of people, I think, they get to a certain point and then they think this hurdle is too far. And that's actually one of the things that, me and a lot of businesses that I talk to, that's why they're reaching out, is because they've hit a hurdle that they themselves cannot solve. And they know it's solvable, but they're not the ones that can solve it.
Right.
And so I think, as a business owner, you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Because I've met a ton of painters and roofers and contractors who, go into it because they're good at painting and they're good at putting on roofs and they're good at plumbing, or they're, all these different things. Right. But they're like, well, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not, a marketer. I'm not all these different things. And so I think one thing that the builder's agency does a good job of is taking that hat off of the business owner and letting them do that, so that they can focus on their business rather than saying, oh, Meta just had an update. What's this that I need to read about and understand and see how that's going to affect me in the next, 30 to, 60 days. So that's another thing that we do is like kind of consulting. And so with all of our clients is we offer, along with all of these, website SEO, Google Ads, videography, all that fun stuff, is just a standard consulting to see, hey, where are we at this month? What are we trying to accomplish this month? What can we do for you? So
yeah. What are your goals? Everything like that.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll add to that too. So, as far as back kind of my original question about kind of, some advice to know when to jump. Cause I have to, can I afford this? Can I afford that? I have to make this amount, things like that. Noah Kagan, if anybody knows who Noah Kagan is, right? Shout out if he's watching. I don't know why he would be, but if he's watching, but anyway, something about Noah Kagan, he has a book, $1 Million Weekend. And, kind of one of his big things is like, what's your freedom number, right? That can very much apply to this, to this scenario, right? Like, what's your freedom number?
Yep.
That your freedom number is the number that you've got to make to be able to, fully transition out of whatever you're in and transition to whatever, business you want to create or thing you want to do, right? So defining your freedom number and actually using real numbers for that freedom number. And okay, how can I get to that? And then once you're there, then it's like, oh, like that's my freedom number. I can do it. I can go. I can jump. I can make the leap. It puts a tangible goal in front of you to try to reach, right? So that's a really good one. So too. But all right. Well, so switching gears on you. So on the marketing side of it, right? On the marketing piece of it, there's so much, and this, right? And everybody watching knows this, right? There's so much about marketing out there in today's world. There's so much about marketing. There's so much about AI. There's so much about, SEO and this and what you need, what you don't need. And algorithms change and, AI, who knows what, AI is created and not created and all that kind of stuff. So break some of that down for us, right? Like if somebody's watching and they're thinking like, I need to do something in this big marketing bubble that exists for my business to help me grow, but I have no clue what that is. Like break down some basics, right? Like what are some like basic level things that somebody should know before going down that road?
Yeah. Okay. And I think this speaks perfect into how the builder's agency runs is we really meet you where you're at. So, we've met with people in the C-suite. We've met with people who are like, I need a logo because I just thought of this the other day and I really want to get this going. And so I think it really depends on, your goals and your budgets. And so I think if we're talking about, a person that doesn't have a huge budget, that just wants to start, just starting off, let's talk about some of those foundational things that you need, right? We were just talking before this call how we cannot believe it's 2026.
Mhm.
And I think in a 2026 world, your business has to have a website. Like it has to have a website. And at the very least, so people, when they look you up, right? Because the first thing people do is they have a problem, whether it's, oh, hey, I need this room painted, or, I just got a letter from the HOA that says I need to repair this roof, or whatever it might be, right? They're going to be looking up, local contractors.
Mhm.
And the next thing they're going to do is they're going to look at your website and they're look at your reviews. And so the first thing you have to do is get a Google business profile. Get a website, get a Google business profile. A website, these websites can cost you anywhere from, $1,500, $2,000 to like $10,000. It just depends on the bells and whistles that you want on it. It shouldn't cost you $10,000 if you're a contractor. I'll just put it that way. Let's I would say anywhere in the $1,500 to like $3,000 range is what you're looking at. And keep it simple, right? They want to know who you are. They want to look at some of your work. So if you have photos of some of your work, it doesn't need to be professional. It could be taken on a phone and you just upload onto your website. And that's the thing. I think people are just looking for good, honest work. I think some people are looking for not chains, right? They don't want to call a company and then get put on this hold, or they want to talk to somebody who's real. So that's the advantage of being a small business, is you get to pick up the phone and talk to your customer. And so if you're starting out small, Google business profile, that's free. Website, that's, depending on what you want, it's affordable.
Mhm.
And then just doing some simple SEO. If this is something that you're doing on your own, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of figure some of this stuff out in terms of like keywords and things like that. But if you're looking for somebody to handle that for you, right, that is a small fee a month that can be completely taken off of your shoulders. But that's where I'd start. I'd honestly start with a website and with a Google business profile. Open up your social media accounts, right? Create those, get those going. Because when Google's algorithm, what they're looking for, people that are reputable, and you have to start in order for them to see you as reputable. And so kind of get those platforms going, get them in the ethers, put them out in the internet, get them going, upload onto them. But that's what I would say. I would say that's where you start. So pivoting a little bit, when we meet with clients, as I mentioned, we meet them where they're at. And so start with the foundations. If you have those things, great. If you're thinking, how do I grow from that, right? I've had a website for a few years. I've had a Google business profile, and we've got a handful of reviews, but I'm still not getting the leads. Like where do I go from there? And I think that's where, somebody like DripJobs comes in great, right? Because now you can plug in DripJobs into your website. So people are filling that out, and like leads are coming to you in an organized fashion. But that's where I think people are ready for the next step in marketing. Like you mentioned, like where do we go from here, right? Like where do people go? There's so much to kind of sift through. And I think that's a great point where we can meet with you individually to kind of see where your business is at, see what kind of marketing would be beneficial, not only to increase your leads, but to make sure that you're not overspending, right? You don't want to overspend these days. And you want to use a platform, and you want to use a way that works for you. So, for example, if you have a product, right, I would really recommend Facebook, because those are kind of impulse impulse buys, right? These are people scrolling. They're not intentionally looking for something.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, if you have a service, this is something that you might want to invest more in, like Google ads, something that's more intention searching. So just a few nuggets for anyone listening, not really sure where to take the next step. They may have had those foundational things ticked off and they've got those out under control. Those next steps is going to be kind of your more technical SEO, putting a little bit of money into investing for your advertising. And again, depending on what you do, what your business is, might depend on the platform. But then I would also say, whether you're planning on using an advertising agency or not, reach out to them, kind of do discovery calls, get maybe like 5 discovery calls under your belt and see what they all say, right? And kind of thread together those commonalities that they give you. And whether or not you want to work with them or not, I would just listen to that feedback. And then you know that your next step. So that's kind of where I would push it to be listening right now.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I like it. And that's good. That's good. That's good advice too. Just doing some discovery calls. I mean, you will learn just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to terminology and things like that, just from talking to people and just jumping on those discovery calls and seeing, like you said, what the common thread is and stuff like that. So, I mean, so a little bit of a recap there, right? Because we kind of talked about a lot of stuff, but a little bit of a recap there would be, at minimum, get that website up and going.
Yeah.
And, you can get, conservatively, that's, $1,500 to, $3,000, right? Something like that. So get that website up and going, spend that $15,000 to $3,000. It can cost you a lot more, but starting out, you don't really need it. You just need something simple.
Yep.
That shows that you're, that you do good quality work, that you're a real human, and then, get your GMB or Google My Business up and going. That's free. And then past that, utilizing the socials, right? I mean, and those 3 right there, I would consider, and probably you would agree, those are foundational.
Yeah.
Right? You kind of get those foundational things going. So now somebody, like you were saying, somebody who's past that, right? So they've got it going. They've got a solid presence. They're kind of, they're posting, they're utilizing those. That's when they need to jump in and really think about, like, okay, either I need to dive in to the SEO and the deeper, the deeper practices and the little bit more complex things and myself, or I need to hire somebody to do that, whether it's like an individual or an employee, or hire an agency to do that. Because once you start getting, bigger and really wanting to throw some ad spend to it, it can get complicated, right? And you can, like you said, don't spend too much, because, I've personally heard, horror stories, right? Of somebody saying, oh, I started an ad and I let it go. And then I did this, I turned this on, and, all of a sudden I spent $20,000 and didn't even realize it.
Right.
And maybe that's an exaggerated amount, right? But I have definitely heard people of turning on ads and spending considerably more than they thought they were going to, or that they wanted to.
Yes.
From that. So be careful of that too, as well, right? Like, don't overspend, be careful of that. And a lot of it's just kind of like testing and seeing what works,
Yeah, absolutely.
Which platforms work, which don't, things like that. So, two questions there. One, if somebody was trying to think about, like, well, how much should I spend on, if I'm going to run my own ads, I'm going to do it myself. They're going to be simple. I'm going to click all the recommended things in Facebook or Meta. How much should I spend? What's like a good amount that I can spend, and how long should I run it for?
Yeah, I hate to give you this answer, but it depends. It really does. It depends on, the expected outcome, right? I would say, if you're just starting and this is, something that you want to test out, be okay to spend anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a month. Right. And give it some time too. I think that's the other thing that people forget. They try it for 1 month and they say, this doesn't work for me, and they cut it off. Try it for 1 month or for 3 months. The first month, there's probably like 2 weeks of like run up time, right? Your ads are new, the platform doesn't trust you quite yet, so give that some space. And then after your first month, see what worked and what didn't, right? Let's say you're doing Google ads, and yes, you started getting some leads coming in, but maybe they were more handyman type leads that were kind of small projects, and so fine tune some of the keywords you're using within those, or or maybe the leads came a little far, it's kind of like an hour drive outside of your way. Hone in that geography, right? Like make sure that your zip codes are tight and things like that. And so, and I know with AI, in the mix now, people are kind of confused as to how to set things up and how to do things. And so, I would say if it means partnering with an agency that's going to charge you, $500 for a management fee, do it, right? Lean on their expertise and kind of let the process really, do its thing. And at the end of that 3 months, kind of turn around and say, okay, did I get a return on investment? And for a lot of these construction companies, right, it really only takes, 3 or 4 like leads that you sell to earn back that investment. We work with a pool contractor, and really like one lead, like if he can sell one lead a month, it's it makes it back in spades. And so, I think it's being okay and having, if your business is in a spot where it's comfortable to spend, $1,500 to $3,000, that's a great starting point. And I think that's a good enough, enough money to kind of play around and really see the results. And at the end of the 3 months, if you're like, hey, this didn't work at all for me, maybe consider either bringing what you've done on your own to an agency to say, hey, this is what I have so far, and like teaming up with them to kind of fine tune your campaign, or go to another agency, right, and say, hey, this is what we did for the last 3 months. It wasn't really working for me. In your discovery call, come with those notes, come with those kind of, this is what didn't work, right? And so, it is a frustrating process from a business owner standpoint, right? But that's all part of dialing everything in, so that's my advice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, if it was easy, then it would just like, the old cheesy thing that my dad used to say or whatever back in the day, like, oh, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true, right? It's like the hard stuff is, when you get in the hard stuff, and the person with the most grit that'll keep going, that can stick with it, is usually going to come out on top. So what's something, just just knowing the profession, knowing marketing and everything like that, what's something that you like never suggest anybody to do, right? Like we've talked about what you should do and how to do it and what you suggest, but what about what not to do, right? When should somebody go running for the hills, right? Like don't do that ever,
Okay, what not to do? I think leave your website stale. I think a lot of people, when they start their business, they hear get a website, which is great advice. And they get a website, but then they act as if it's a brochure. And I think if there's anything that we've learned in this digital age that we live in, is that, your website is your asset. It's just as much, valuable as your house or your car, or, it's something that is selling your business while you're sleeping, which I think is something that people underutilize. And so keeping your website up to date, right? Adding content, whether that's to your blog or updating the content on your homepage and your service pages, even having service pages. I think sometimes it's wild to me. I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of discovery calls at this point. And I've seen everything from no website to one page website, but it has no information, and so I think really building out that website to not only show Google your authority, but also, your new clients, right? Like potential clients that go to your website, they want to see, oh, they've been around for a while. I see all sorts of types of projects they've done. And if you're new, don't feel this like obligation to have like hundreds of pictures on your websites either. Know that is something it's a slow build. But yes, don't let your website go to waste. I think that's one of the things that I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, don't make your website a dynamic, organic growth machine for you that stays active and is selling for you and representing for you while you sleep, right?
Yeah.
24/7, because it is.
Right.
It is. I mean, that's 100% what it's doing, right? So, yeah, no, that's good. I mean, it's just like that makes me, the vision that popped into my head that I thought of was like water, right? Like, a pond, stale water. Nobody likes that,
Yeah.
But a flowing mountain stream that's constantly moving and changing and shaping its environment around it. Everybody wants that, right? Like, everybody likes to hear it. They like to see it. They like to drink from it, so that's immediately like sort of the vision that, popped in my head when you said that. So I like that. That was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I would say is make earning reviews a part of your process. I think, you mentioned Google Business Profile earlier. And I think it's extremely important to earn those reviews. And I know there's a lot of different platforms out there that kind of automate this. DripJobs is a great example of that. When you finish a project, I think there's a lot of either humble or meek business owners that just rather not bother them with them writing a review. But I think it's extremely important. And this day and age now, we have emails or text messages that can remind them and make it simple to start leaving those reviews. And so that's another way of getting found, earning leads, earning money. So make sure that that's part of your process. Yep.
Got it. Yeah, no, it's a good one too. Yep. 100%. Yeah. And we do. Yeah. We've got that built into our process as well too. What would be kind of, as we're sort of coming a little bit more toward the end of our time here, what's a little, a little nugget of free advice or a little something that you would suggest to for somebody to do right now, right? As we're at the beginning of a year, I know we've talked about a lot of things of what you suggest, but like, what's something like tangible that somebody can do right now? It's literally day 2 of 2026. So what's something that somebody can do to tackle 2026 to make a change that, like, if we do all the other things that we've talked about, what's one thing that they should definitely do to try to, start to right the ship, so to speak?
Yeah. That's a great question. What can somebody do right now? I really think, like, if you're in a position where, you don't have any money, right? But you want to start a business and you want to just get the ball started, I really think Google Business Profile is your best bet. It's free, right? You can put all of your information on there. There's YouTube that has 50, 60,000 videos of helping you, walk through the process. So you don't need to be a technical expert. And I say that because I know that there are a lot of contractors and subcontractors as well that, that aren't, rolling in it, right? They're just starting out. And I think that is a process that can get you to the next step, right? You might even not be at a part where you're like ready for a website, but having that Google Business Profile kind of puts your name on the map, so to speak.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned in our last question, you get those reviews start to roll in. And I think that's kind of that foundational piece. So yeah, get the foundationals under your belt. And like I mentioned, if you're unsure, reach out to somebody who is, schedule it. the building agency, we have free discovery calls, which is going to be with myself or my business partner, Zach. And, we spend a half hour of just listening to what it is that where you currently are, right? And what your struggles are, and what you're looking for. And so what we do is we listen to you, one, and two, we offer you kind of tailored solutions. I think there are a lot of business models. I love business models, right? Because there's like a template, right? And if the template works, then it works, and that's great. I just think with, our fast moving tech world that we're living in, right?
Yep.
I wouldn't want to be somebody that could push through a machine, right? And and I know that a lot of these kind of one size fits all solutions don't really work for a lot of our clients. And so meeting somebody where they're at, and kind of hearing what their issues are and what their struggles are, is really kind of like a core foundational piece of the builder's agency. And so schedule a discovery call if you want to be with us. Great. If there's somebody else you have in mind, great. But listen to that feedback that either we give you or somebody else gives you, and kind of start making goals. So I guess that's kind of I don't know why, but I always have this lens of the brand new entrepreneur. So a lot of my advice is for those people that are like, kind of like what we were talking about, just the people that want to get started and get going. And so, that's advice, yeah.
100%. Well, there's probably a lot of people coming off a slow season too, right? I mean, I know there is, and not probably. I know there is.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people thinking about this year, coming off a slow season, thinking about what they're going to do next.
Yep.
Along with the people that are just starting out as well too. So, you can never go wrong with your foundation, with a strong foundation, right? Or a strong cornerstone. Like you can, that's pretty much goes for anything in life in general, right? I mean, strong foundation, whatever it may be, whatever aspect in life, physical, mental, spiritual, all that kind of stuff, right? So absolutely. Well, I for anybody watching, or rewatches, I put a link to the builder's agency, in the thread there, in the chat. So, and then, so follow that up and book something with Matt there with his team. So, to, help you get started right in 2026 for sure. So, man. So past that, man, that was it. That was, kind of all, all I had for us today. I appreciate the time, and I'm going to do a shameless plug here at the end for, for Liftoff, for people to come join us for Liftoff. If you haven't done one of those, come join us. There's a lot of good, information there. I'm gonna throw that in the chat as well. So, but, Matt, I appreciate it. It was good talking to you. I hope everybody listening or watching or whoever rewatches this, has had as much fun as I did. But yeah, man, I appreciate the time. Thanks for joining me, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Eli.
All right. Yeah, you got it, man. All right. Bye, everybody.